Chosen One, on August 10th, the call before you is not a guarantee that every difficulty will disappear in a single day, but it is a sacred invitation to stop surrendering your future to fear. You have carried battles that made you question your strength, seasons that seemed to stretch beyond your ability to endure, and moments when silence felt like heaven had forgotten your name. Yet you are still here, and your continued presence is evidence that the story has not ended where the enemy expected it to end. The door in front of you may not open through noise, force, or desperation, but through the quiet courage to take the next faithful step. This is the moment to advance, not because you have every answer, but because obedience often creates the clarity that waiting could never produce. You do not have to conquer everything at once. You only have to stop allowing yesterday to command tomorrow. If you want to understand the season you are entering and recognize what this call may be forming within you, the call of the chosen. A 30-day journey can help you walk through these reflections with greater clarity, find access through the pinned comment, and begin with the step that speaks most directly to your present season. Let this message meet you before you move, because true victory begins when your inner agreement with defeat finally breaks. There is a difference between being tired and being finished. Tiredness asks for restoration, but defeat whispers that restoration is pointless. The voice of fear will use your exhaustion as evidence against your calling, telling you that because you struggled, you are disqualified. Because you paused, you are behind. Because you cried, you are weak. But the one who sees the whole road does not measure you by one difficult mile. He sees the nights when you kept believing while your emotions were collapsing, the mornings when you rose without applause, and the private decisions that no one else knew required courage. You were not abandoned in those hidden moments. You were being strengthened beneath the surface, where roots grow before branches become visible. Before you continue, take a slow breath and say, "I will advance with faith, wisdom, and courage." Do not say it as a performance for anyone else. Say it as a decision you are making in the attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. Quiet place within you. Your words cannot control every event, but they can reveal which voice you are choosing to trust. When you speak faith over your life, you are not denying the existence of the mountain. You are refusing to give the mountain authority over your direction. The path may still require patience, discipline, forgiveness, and hard work, but you will no longer approach it as someone begging for permission to exist. You will approach it as someone who has remembered that purpose can survive pressure. The title of this message carries urgency because there are seasons when delay becomes a habit. You begin by waiting for confidence, then for perfect conditions, then for someone else to validate what you already know. Eventually, waiting feels safer than moving, even when remaining still keeps you trapped in the same cycle. Chosen One, August 10th can serve as a marker of reflection and renewed obedience. Let it remind you that a meaningful beginning does not require a perfect calendar, a flawless plan, or the approval of every person around you. It requires an honest look at what fear has postponed and a willingness to place the next step in the hands of God. You have spent enough time asking whether you are capable of overcoming everything. The better question is whether you are willing to meet each challenge with the strength available for that day. This matters because your mind often tries to solve the entire future before permitting you to act in the present. It imagines every possible rejection, every expense, every conversation, every delay, and every way the plan could fail. Then it calls that imagination wisdom. Wisdom prepares, but fear rehearses disaster until paralysis feels responsible. You are not required to carry tomorrow's battles with today's strength. You are required to be faithful with today's assignment. If this message is finding you at a moment when you feel spiritually tired, but still inwardly called, understand that your weariness does not cancel your identity. Many people confuse peace with the absence of pressure, yet some of the deepest peace arrives while pressure remains. Peace is the settled knowledge that pressure does not have the final word. It is the ability to make a clear decision while circumstances are still changing. It is the quiet confidence that you can be corrected without being condemned, delayed without being denied, and stretched without being destroyed. The chosen are not people who never feel fear. They are people who learn not to let fear become their guide. You may have noticed that some opportunities disappeared just when you were ready to pursue them. You may have watched relationships change, plans become impossible, or familiar support withdraw. At first, these losses looked like proof that you had missed your moment, but not every closing is punishment, and not every departure is rejection. Sometimes, what leaves your life creates the space required for your character to mature. Sometimes a delay protects you from arriving at a destination with an unprepared heart. Sometimes the silence around you is not emptiness, but separation, removing the noise that kept you from hearing the direction within you. Do not call every ending a curse simply because it hurts. The journey ahead can be imagined as a mountain path after a long storm. The mountain has not moved, but the air has changed. The ground is wet, the stones are exposed, and the familiar trail is less obvious than it was before. You might be tempted to turn back, because the path is no longer easy to recognize, yet the storm has also cleared branches that blocked your view. It has washed away signs that pointed toward places you had outgrown. It has revealed where your footing is weak and where you need to slow down. The mountain is not mocking you by requiring effort. It is teaching you how to climb with attention. As you walk this mountain path, do not mistake a slower pace for failure. There are portions of the ascent where speed would be dangerous. You may need to test each stone before placing your weight upon it. Examine the weather, preserve your energy, and accept help without shame. The world may celebrate rapid movement, but heaven is also concerned with the quality of the person arriving at the summit. A fast climb with a fractured soul is not the victory you were created to pursue. You are being formed into someone who can carry influence without being consumed by it, receive increase without losing humility, and lead without needing to dominate. The first stretch of the path may feel lonely, because old companions do not always understand the direction of a person who has changed internally. They may remember the version of you who tolerated everything, explained everything, and apologized for having needs. When you begin to honor your calling, your boundaries may look like distance to people who benefited from your confusion. This does not mean you should become harsh. It means you must stop treating everyone's discomfort as proof that you are wrong. Love can remain present without allowing manipulation. Compassion can remain open without leaving the door unlocked to every destructive pattern. Chosen one, place your hand over your heart and say, I release the need to be understood by everyone. This is not a declaration of isolation. It is a release from the exhausting attempt to persuade people who have already decided to misinterpret you. Your life cannot move forward while you are constantly returning to the same courtroom, presenting evidence to those committed to your guilt. There are people who will understand you later, after the fruit appears. There are others who may never understand, and you must learn to let their conclusion remain outside your assignment. Your value is not established by public agreement. It is established by the truth God has been patiently building within you. There will be moments on this mountain when you see no summit at all. The clouds will gather, the horizon will disappear, and your progress will seem impossible to measure. In those moments, you must trust the practice of one step, one honest conversation, one disciplined morning, one application submitted, one boundary honored, one prayer whispered without emotion, one task completed even though no one applauded. The summit is reached through ordinary faithfulness, repeated long enough to become a new way of living. Do not despise the small steps merely because they do not produce an immediate spectacle. If you need a practical sign of advancement, look at what you now refuse to return to. You may still feel grief, but you no longer romanticize the place that wounded you. You may still remember the betrayal, but you no longer build your identity around revenge. You may still desire the opportunity, but you no longer compromise your integrity to obtain it. These are not small changes. They are evidence that the mountain is changing you while you climb it. Progress is not always a new possession. Sometimes it is the disappearance of an old appetite, an old excuse, or an old agreement with limitation. There is also a hidden danger in believing that victory must look dramatic. You may expect a sudden announcement, an undeniable sign, or a moment when every critic becomes silent. But many victories begin quietly. A thought that used to control you loses its power. A temptation that once seemed irresistible becomes recognizable. A conversation that would once have produced anger now produces restraint. A closed door no longer causes you to collapse. The change may be invisible to others, but it is real. Do not reject a quiet victory because it does not resemble the stories you imagined. The mountain path also teaches discernment. Not every trail that rises leads to your destination. Some routes look impressive, but end at a cliff. Some paths are crowded because they are popular, not because they are right. Some voices will insist that urgency is proof of divine direction, when urgency may simply be pressure designed to prevent careful thought. You must learn to distinguish a genuine call from the need to prove yourself. A true assignment may demand courage, but it will not require you to abandon wisdom, integrity, or compassion. If a path demands that you become someone you cannot respect, it is too expensive, no matter how attractive the view appears. At this point, you may wonder why the season has required so much preparation. Why could the promise not arrive before the pain? Why did the answer have to come through uncertainty? Why did you have to learn patience through circumstances you would never have chosen? There may not be one simple explanation for every hardship. Yet preparation often happens through resistance, because resistance reveals what comfort conceals. Pressure exposes your patterns, your motives, your fears, and your dependence. The process is not proof that you are forgotten. It may be the training ground where your capacity becomes strong enough to carry what you have been asking for. Remember this when you are tempted to compare your ascent with someone else's. Their path may appear shorter because you cannot see the hidden valleys behind them. Their public success does not reveal their private responsibilities, and your private preparation does not make you less successful. Comparison turns a personal calling into a race with rules you did not choose. It makes you resent your timing and imitate destinations that were never yours. Keep your eyes on the next faithful step. The mountain does not ask you to climb another person's route. It asks you to remain attentive to the trail assigned to you. At some point, you will reach a ledge where you can see how far you have already come. You will notice that the valley below once seemed permanent, yet now it has become part of your testimony. The pain did not become good simply because time passed, but it became a place from which wisdom could emerge. You learned what desperation sounds like, what false comfort costs, and what happens when you abandon yourself to keep others pleased. You also learned that grace can meet you after your worst decision. That knowledge is not a license to repeat the mistake. It is an invitation to walk forward without carrying unnecessary shame. Right in your heart, the valley was not the end of me. Let that sentence become a boundary against the old interpretation of your life. You are not merely the person who was rejected, delayed, betrayed, overlooked, or misunderstood. Those things happened to you, but they do not contain the whole meaning of you. You are also the person who endured, learned, adapted, forgave, rebuilt, and kept a small flame alive when the wind was strong. The flame did not need to be large to be faithful. It only needed enough life to remain lit until the morning came. As the path rises, the air becomes thinner. This is where unnecessary burdens become impossible to ignore. You cannot carry every accusation, every old expectation, every abandoned dream, and every fear about the future while pretending they weigh nothing. The mountain does not punish you for having baggage. It simply reveals the cost of carrying it. Release does not always happen in one emotional moment. Sometimes it happens through a repeated decision not to rehearse the same wound, revisit the same argument, or punish yourself for what you could not know then. Every release gives your attention back to your purpose. One burden you may need to release is the belief that you must make everyone comfortable before you move. Your growth will disturb some familiar arrangements. When you become more truthful, people who preferred your silence may accuse you of changing. When you become disciplined, people who relied on your inconsistency may call you distant. When you become hopeful, people attached to your old pessimism may call you unrealistic. You do not have to become arrogant in response. Simply remain steady. Let your conduct explain what your arguments cannot. A mature life does not need to announce every boundary. It lives from a boundary already established. Another burden is the demand for immediate certainty. You may want a complete map before you take one step, but many callings unfold like a path revealed by morning light. Enough becomes visible for the next movement, then more becomes visible after you obey what you already know. This does not mean acting carelessly. It means accepting that knowledge often grows through responsible action. Pray, examine, seek counsel, prepare, and then move when the next step is clear enough. Do not call uncertainty a command to freeze. Sometimes uncertainty is simply the space in which trust develops. Your victory will also require practical intention. Faith is not a substitute for action. It gives action a deeper foundation. Organize what has been neglected, study what you have avoided, make the necessary call, tell the truth without cruelty, set a schedule that respects your purpose, protect your health and your attention, ask for help where pride has kept you silent. The spiritual life is not separated from these ordinary decisions. The way you manage a morning, a promise, a conversation, or a responsibility can become an altar where your devotion is expressed. You may be waiting for permission to begin, but the permission you need may not come from the people who watched you struggle. Some will only recognize your potential after you demonstrate it, and by then you will no longer need their permission. This is not an argument against wise counsel. It is a warning against making approval the foundation of obedience. Seek voices that tell you the truth with love, not voices that flatter your fear or exploit your insecurity. A trustworthy guide will not make you dependent on their constant approval. They will help you become more responsible, more discerning, and more capable of hearing clearly. There is a difference between advancing and escaping. Escaping is driven by the need to outrun discomfort, while advancing is guided by purpose even when discomfort remains. If you move only because you cannot tolerate the present, You may recreate the same pattern in a different place, but if you move because you have learned, prepared, and discerned, then your movement carries wisdom. Do not use a new environment to avoid an old lesson. Carry the lesson with you and leave the chains behind. The next chapter should not merely have different scenery, it should contain a different version of your response. The path may eventually lead you toward people who need what you have learned. Your story will not be useful because it is perfect. It will be useful because it is honest. The person who has known confusion can offer patience to someone confused. The person who has survived rejection can recognize hidden pain in another. The person who has rebuilt after loss can help someone else believe that rebuilding is possible. But do not rush to turn every wound into a public lesson before it has healed. Wisdom is not measured by how quickly you can speak about pain. Sometimes wisdom is knowing when to remain quiet, protect the sacred, and allow healing to complete its work. You will encounter resistance as you advance, and resistance does not automatically mean you chose the wrong direction. A seed meets resistance beneath the soil before it ever sees the sun. A muscle strengthens by meeting resistance it could not handle before. A character becomes dependable when it is tested in circumstances that make compromise attractive. Resistance may reveal a need to adjust, but it may also reveal that your old environment no longer has the authority it once held. Examine the resistance without worshipping it. Learn from it without surrendering to it. Ask what it is teaching, then continue with wisdom. When doubt returns, do not be shocked. Doubt is not always a sign that faith has disappeared. Sometimes it is the mind asking for evidence that the heart has already begun to receive. You can acknowledge the question without obeying the fear behind it. You can say, "I do not know everything, but I know enough to take the next right step." That sentence creates room for humility and courage to exist together. You do not have to pretend certainty in order to move faithfully. You only need to stop demanding that uncertainty become absolute proof of danger. The chosen life is not a life without ordinary responsibilities. You will still wash dishes, answer messages, meet deadlines, repair mistakes, and deal with people who test your patience. The sacred is often hidden inside these ordinary moments. Your calling is not only revealed when you stand before a crowd, it is revealed in how you treat the person who cannot advance your agenda, how you handle money when no one is watching, and how you respond when your plans are interrupted. Great purpose is sustained by small acts of integrity. The mountain is climbed through 1,000 ordinary choices. There may be a relationship you need to approach with honesty. Perhaps you have been waiting for the other person to notice the distance, apologize first, or somehow understand what you never expressed. Advancement may require a conversation that is calm, clear, and free from the need to control the outcome. You can speak your truth without demanding a particular response. You can forgive without returning to an unsafe pattern. You can love someone and still accept that their access to your life must change. Peace is not always produced by reconciliation. Sometimes it is produced by finally telling the truth to yourself. There may also be a dream you have buried because disappointment made it feel embarrassing to hope again. Be gentle with that part of you. A buried dream may need to be examined, not automatically resurrected. Ask whether it still reflects your values, whether it can be pursued with healthier motives, and whether the desire has matured through what you have experienced. You do not have to return to the exact form of an old dream. Perhaps its deeper purpose remains, while its original shape has changed. The seed may be alive, even if the first container could no longer hold it. On August 10th, let your attention return to the word advance. Advance does not mean rush. It means move toward what is true, responsible, and aligned with the purpose being formed in you. It means Stop feeding the argument that your past has already decided your future. It means recognize that some victories are not dramatic reversals, but steady refusals to retreat. The day can become a personal marker, a reminder that you are choosing movement over stagnation, wisdom over panic, and faithfulness over the need to see the entire outcome before beginning. If you are ready to make this decision inwardly, say, "I will not retreat from what God is teaching me." Let this be the fifth and final ritual of this message, not a promise that you will never feel fear, but a declaration that fear will not be the author of your life. You may still need to rest. You may still need to reconsider a strategy. You may still need to wait for the right timing. Retreat from confusion can be wise, but retreat from purpose because discomfort appeared is another matter. Learn the difference and let discernment protect your courage. The moment of victory may arrive differently than you expect. It may begin with a clear thought after months of mental fog. It may begin with the courage to stop returning to what drained you. It may begin with a modest opportunity that places you in motion again. It may begin with forgiveness, not because the other person earned it, but because you refuse to let their actions rent space in your spirit forever. Do not limit God's work to the form of a public miracle. A healed response, a disciplined habit, and a restored sense of direction can be miracles of transformation. You are not being asked to pretend that everything is easy. The message is not that every problem will instantly bow, that every opponent will suddenly apologize, or that every desire will be granted on a particular date. The message is that difficulty does not have the right to define your final posture. You can face complexity and remain clear. You can encounter delay and remain faithful. You can lose something precious and still discover that your life has not lost its meaning. You can advance without making false promises about the road ahead. There will be days when you need to celebrate progress that no one else can see. Celebrate the fact that you paused before reacting. Celebrate that you honored a commitment. Celebrate that you asked for help instead of hiding. Celebrate that you returned to prayer after disappointment. Celebrate that you chose not to become bitter after being treated unfairly. These celebrations are not vanity, they are recognition. What you recognize, you are more likely to repeat. Give your soul evidence that change is happening even when the larger picture remains unfinished. Your future will not be built by emotion alone. Feelings can inspire you, but structure will sustain you. Create rhythms that make obedience easier. Remove unnecessary distractions. Decide what deserves your best attention. Write down the principles you refuse to betray. Keep close the people who strengthen your honesty rather than your performance. When you fail, correct the course without turning the failure into an identity. When you succeed, remain teachable. The chosen are not preserved by perfection. They are preserved by returning to truth again and again. Perhaps you have been asking when your turn will come. The answer may not be a date stamped upon the sky. It may be a gradual recognition that your turn begins when you stop waiting for an external announcement and start becoming available to the responsibility already near you. Your turn may look like serving quietly, building patiently, learning deeply, or choosing integrity when compromise would be more profitable. The promise is not that you will control every outcome. The promise is that a life surrendered to truth will never be wasted, even when its fruit takes time to appear. As you continue climbing, remember the people who may be watching without speaking. Your courage may become permission for someone else to begin. Your refusal to remain bitter may show another person that pain does not have to become identity. Your commitment to honest work may challenge someone who believed that success required manipulation. Yo-ho. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise, learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.